Thank you, Mr. President. I am pleased to rise to move this motion in my name today as a persistent advocate for greater investment in community sporting facilities. I grew up playing netball at the Creek Road netball courts in Newtown and basketball at the Moona and Clarence Sports Centres. The facilities I played in have changed very little in the 30 years since I ran around them as a 10-year-old. I was speaking with a man named Bruce on the weekend who suggested the only real love the Warrane basketball stadium has had since 1986 is a lick of paint and some new hoops. No new facilities have been developed in these areas in this time either, Mr. President. This is truly remarkable given the population growth and participation increases that have occurred during this time. This is truly remarkable considering this government set a goal of being the healthiest state in Australia by 2025 during this time. During my campaign for the seat of Elwick last year, I was clear that I supported the government investing in high-performance sporting facilities, but that my support is contingent on the government also investing enough in community sport and recreation facilities. There's a lot of catching up to do, and governments at all levels must urgently work together to plan and deliver new and renewed regional sport and recreation infrastructure so that no one misses out on the opportunity to play. Ultimately, we need a regional sport and recreation infrastructure strategy that demonstrates an understanding of forecast population growth and participation trends across sport and recreation activities. A strategy that analyses the condition of current indoor and outdoor facilities, including those at schools, and identifies suitable land for the development of future facilities. A strategy that provides for consistent ownership structure and operating model to ensure fairness and equity across sports and to ensure asset maintenance and renewal is planned and budgeted for. Perhaps we need something like a Stadiums Tasmania at a community infrastructure level, Mr. President. Councils and not-for-profit organisations have struggled through the development and maintenance of sporting infrastructure for decades, doing their best to provide for communities but getting left behind, particularly in the south, competing for funding and losing the battle, affected by the impact of non-marginal seats. And we need a strategy for both high-performance sport and community sport and recreation infrastructure. I'm sure a lot of community and political angst could have been avoided if the AFL and Jack Jumpers high performance training centres had been proactively planned for rather than reactively provided for from a site selection and budget perspective. Mr. President, in recent times we've witnessed a government that is quick to commit significant funding to the development of high performance training centres that serve an elite few who profit from their participation, predominantly an elite few. Now it's time to even the score and commit to developing enough community sporting facilities to serve everyday Tasmanians who pay to participate. Everyday Tasmanians whose participation provides a return on investment to the government in better health and social outcomes for Tasmanians. Just last week, Mr. President, I received an email from a representative of She Shreds seeking support in securing a new home for their indoor skating club facility, as their existing home, a building in the city owned by UTAS, is to be sold. The Northern Suburbs Table Tennis Association too is looking for a new home. Many people aren't aware that we have a women's and a men's Tasmanian volleyball team, the Echidnas. Well, they need a fit-for-purpose courts to be able to develop future state players and host National League competitions too. Last year I had a conversation even with the Pigeon Racing Club, who were desperate for a new home after being displaced by the Hobart Showgrounds redevelopment. The list is long, Mr. President. The need for community sport and recreation facilities in Greater Hobart stretches far and wide. We must provide adequate indoor courts, ovals, pitches and aquatic facilities to cater for growing participation across a number of codes, including basketball, netball, pickleball, volleyball, gymnastics, football, AFL cricket and other sport and recreation activities we know Tasmanians love. But today my focus is on basketball facilities in response to the recently released Basketball Tasmania State Facility Strategy 2025 to 2035 and the Hobart Phoenix Basketball Association's current quest to secure funding for the Home for Hobart basketball project at Newtown Bay, in partnership with the City of Hobart and with the support of Basketball Tasmania. Published in the Mercury on 12th of March 2025, an opinion piece by Basketball Tasmania CEO Ben Smith said, and I quote, "Basketball is booming in Australia, wherever there are enough quality facilities to support growth. New South Wales is currently leading the charge with over 160 courts in development. Queensland and Victoria are seeing similar surges in participation, thanks to significant investment in sporting infrastructure. Meanwhile, Tasmania lags behind with the lowest per capita basketball participation rate in the country. Yet despite this, we've still seen an impressive 10% growth annually. So, what is driving participation in sport? It's not flashy marketing campaigns, elite sports experiences, or big-name endorsements. The answer is much simpler, though often overlooked: access. What drives sports participation? It's not marketing, it's access. In today's world, kids are more connected to sport than ever before. Social media, television, and streaming platforms provide access to highlights, behind-the-scenes content, and role models from leagues around the world. Walk into any Tasmanian schoolyard and you'll see LeBron James singlets, soon Taron Armstrong, and kids imitating their heroes on the playground. And yet Tasmania's most played sport isn't basketball, it's soccer. Why? Because it's accessible. Almost every primary school in Tasmania has a patch of grass big enough to serve as a junior soccer pitch. Portable goals are affordable and easy to set up. With minimal infrastructure, kids can start playing immediately before school, at lunchtime and after school. This ease of access makes a significant difference. Soccer doesn't require kids to travel long distances, pay expensive fees or rely on scheduled court time. It's simply there waiting to be played. Basketball, on the other hand, isn't so lucky. Without dedicated courts, kids have limited opportunities to play unless they are part of a structured program. The demand for court space is at an all-time high and families struggle to find training and game times that fit within their schedules. As players progress to higher levels, access to full-size pitches and comparative opportunities becomes more challenging. But the participation numbers don't lie. When access is easy, participation thrives. Recognising this challenge, Basketball Tasmania recently released a state facility strategy, a long-term plan for improving infrastructure and making basketball more accessible to Tasmanians. End quote. A very long quote. Point 1 of my motion, Mr President, asks the Council to consider and note the Basketball Tasmania State Facilities Strategy 2025 to 2035, highlighting the urgent need for substantial investment in community basketball infrastructure across the state. Again, quoting from the opinion piece, Basketball Tasmania CEO Ben Smith says, "Our ambition is simple. Provide access to fit-for-purpose facilities so that kids can train, play and develop their skills without barriers." End quote. The Basketball Tasmania Facilities Strategy provides an overview of basketball facilities provision based on a review of historical data and council planning documents combined with local knowledge from the basketball community. Key data includes: there are approximately 114 sites with a basketball court across Tasmania, including 72 school sites. Of the 42 non-school sites, there are only 26 are fit for purpose and currently used by clubs and associations. And only 6 full-size courts meet Basketball Australia's compliance standards. Based on current population and participation data, basketball in Tasmania needs access to a minimum of 66 courts, meaning there is a statewide service gap of 27 courts. However, due to the distribution of existing facilities, there is an actual requirement for 31 additional courts to adequately service the population at a local level. That is, we are currently 31 courts short to meet demand. To meet demand, there is an urgent need for 16 more courts in Greater Hobart and 4 in the southern regional area, 9 courts in the north and 2 courts in the northwest. Mr President, imagine the poor mum and dad volunteers trying to schedule games when we're 31 courts short. Kids and adults, for that matter, are missing out on playing basketball because there is nowhere for them to play. Some games and training sessions are scheduled at ridiculous o'clock because of the court shortage. Some people are choosing not to play because of this. This underinvestment has a real impact on Tasmania's health outcomes. Points 2 and 3 of my motion ask the Council to note the participation trends when it comes to basketball in Tasmania. 2024 Ausplay data shows that in Tasmania, basketball is the #1 team sport for adults and #3 team sport for children. Basketball Tasmania has seen an average annual participation growth rate of over 9% since 2020, when there were 13,381 participants. In 2024, Basketball Tasmania had 19,013 participants, including over 12,000 registered club players. This represents a statewide participation rate of 2.1%. The participation rate amongst children and youth is even higher, with nearly 9% of Tasmanians between the ages of 5 and 19 participating in a Basketball Tasmania affiliated competition. Tasmanian participation in the Aussie Hoops junior program has increased by 88%, and if we are to include school and casual participation, AusPlay data suggests that participation in the 5 to 19 year age group is 10.6%. For members' interest, the number one sport for Tasmanian children is football, soccer, with a participation rate of 12.5%, followed by gymnastics at 10.9%, basketball is third at 10.6%, followed by AFL at 9%, netball at 5.9%, and cricket at 2.7%. Considering this data, basketball is the number one court sport played by both children and adults. Basketball's ongoing popularity, combined with the interest generated by the recent success and community outreach activities of the Tasmania Jack Jumpers NBL team, is likely to see the demand for basketball to continue to grow over the coming years. Basketball participation in Tasmania is experiencing unprecedented and sustained growth, limited only by capacity and resources. We encourage people to be active for good physical health, to join a club for connection and good mental health, but participation is severely limited by a lack of facilities. Mr President, the correlation between access to facilities and participation is clearly demonstrated by regional participation figures. 2.9% in the north, 2.5% in the northwest, and 1.6% in the south. Clearly, participation is higher where there is not such a severe shortage of facilities. Point 4 of my motion asks the Council to agree there is an urgent need for more community basketball facilities, with a current critical shortage of 16 courts in the Greater Hobart area alone and a total shortage of 31 courts statewide. I've already referred to the data on the shortage of courts, so now I'll turn my focus to the shortage of courts specifically in Greater Hobart. Importantly, and to the core of this motion, over half of the statewide 31 court shortage is in the Greater Hobart area alone, which requires between 16 and 19 additional courts to meet the needs of our growing population. Can you see why I'm jumping up and down about this? Again, quoting from Ben Smith's opinion piece of 12th of March, this lack of infrastructure is a major barrier. It prevents casual participation, forces families into competitive schedules they may not be able to commit to, and discourages potential new players from ever picking up a basketball in the first place. End quote. I've just talked about the significant growth in basketball participation, but let's imagine what the numbers could be if there were enough places to play. The facility strategy provides data that really smacks you in the face in demonstrating the impact of a lack of facilities on participation trends. The data shows that basketball participation rates in Greater Hobart fall behind those in other parts of the state, including in the 5 to 19 year age group, where participation in the south is less than half the state average. Where there is the greatest shortage of facilities, there are less kids participating. Kids are missing out because there is not enough courts to play. On Friday in Greater Hobart, a parent told me there are games on the Hobart Basketball Association season roster with venues still to be confirmed because there are no courts available. Games that may not go ahead unless a court can be secured by the roster convener. Again, who would want that volunteer role? Tough gig. The Greater Hobart region has the greatest court provision gap, with current supply only meeting 42% of demand. The current deficit of 16 courts is centred on the City of Hobart, which is short 6 courts, followed by Kingborough and Clarence, short of 3 courts each, and Glenorchy and Brighton, each short 2 courts. Apparently, member for Prosser, you'll be pleased to know, you will know, Surrey has enough courts to meet current demand, so you've done better than I have to date.
20 years.
Well done. Greater Hobart, comprising Hobart, Glenorchy, Clarence and Kingborough, is home to more than 40% of Tasmania's population. It is in the southern region where the largest opportunity currently exists to further grow basketball participation rates, and the facility strategy sets out 9 projects across Greater Hobart more broadly, with just one of them, the Glenorchy Sports Centre at Claremont College, so far having funding committed. I'm grateful for that funding and grateful to see the project progressing, the Glenorchy Sports Centre at Claremont College, after much delay. However, it's disappointing the government is not hearing the call to allow the Glenorchy Basketball Association to develop a home base here with the addition of a club room. I and the Glenorchy Basketball Association are all for shared facilities, multi-use across a range of sports. But as the data shows, basketball is the number one court sport for kids and adults. And the number one court sport not only warrants investment to provide sufficient facilities to play, it also deserves facilities where clubs can create a sense of identity, establish their roots and a geographical connection to the local community. Just like the Jack Jumpers and Devils, the Glenorchy Basketball Association and Hobart Phoenix Basketball Association, with their thousands of participants, both deserve to have a place to call home. This goes to point 5 of my motion, which asks the Council to note the collaborative efforts of the Hobart Basketball Association in partnership with Hobart City Council and with the support of Basketball Tasmania to make Newtown Bay the home for Hobart basketball through the development of a 4-court community basketball and clubroom facility at a cost of approximately $25 million. I want to take this opportunity to recognise the efforts of Hobart Phoenix Basketball Association here, particularly Matt McIver and Stuart Williamson, who have been leading the charge on the project, planning and advocacy. I also acknowledge Lord Mayor Anna Reynolds and elected members from the City of Hobart who have committed to investing in this new facility, understanding the need and benefits are worth the ongoing cost implications that the Council will bear in maintenance and depreciation. And I acknowledge the City of Hobart staff who have and continue to contribute their efforts to making this project happen. Mr President, basketball clubs and associations with membership bases from 300 through to 3,500 have no clubroom facilities, which are a cornerstone of the community sporting experience and universally enjoyed in almost every other sport. Consequently, basketball players, coaches, referees and volunteers and their families have no opportunity for their discretionary spend aligned to their participation to be reinvested into the sport. They also don't have the opportunity to have somewhere to regularly socialise with their peers in a basketball club. Basketball clubs and associations in the South operate from a hodgepodge of shared facilities. All Southern Tasmanian basketball facilities are managed by a third party in the form of a council, community organisation or school. In all scenarios, basketball is competing for court space, equipment upgrades and contributing net deficits to the basketball economy with little expenditure or investment returning for progressive investment into grassroots basketball. All club activity takes place at commercial rates with limited capacity and scope for reinvestment and fundraising activities to take place to support ongoing development initiatives to support the participation experience. For clarity, Mr President, we are talking about the canteen, sausage sizzles and social functions hosted as a matter of course by sporting clubs across the spectrum. Without this critical avenue towards sustainability, basketball clubs are operating through the unsustainable goodwill of volunteers who are doing their best to minimise the cost to memberships. The facility strategy refers to the importance of homes and hubs for basketball. A place to call home is important not only for scheduling, but also for the social and economic benefits a home provides. Access to social spaces and ancillary amenities such as offices, meeting rooms, function spaces, canteens and even storage areas help to build a sense of belonging and foster a sense of community among participants, spectators and supporters. It also takes the pressure off time-poor volunteers who currently spend agonising hours seeking to schedule rosters across different venues and store equipment and merchandise in whoever's garage it will fit. The facility strategy rightly says that having access to a place to call home is the foundation of all community sport and a privilege which is universally enjoyed by almost every other sport in Tasmania. Well, maybe not every other sport. Remember that list I mentioned before? Pickleball, volleyball, pigeon racing, skating, table tennis, they may all beg to differ. But I think it's fair to say having a home base is a privilege enjoyed by the other top participation sports in Tasmania. I think football, cricket and AFL clubs, even gymnastics. Netball clubs in the south don't have their own home, but whilst it's not ideal and doesn't provide all the benefits of individual home club bases, the Southern Tasmanian Netball Association does provide some form of a home base to southern netball clubs collectively. While I'm talking about netball and other sports, Mr President, I note that the Hobart Phoenix Basketball Association has received letters from Cripps Waratah Netball Club, Pickleball Tasmania and Volleyball Tasmania, all expressing their support for the development of a home for Hobart basketball at Newtown Bay, with a view to shared use of the courts and access to other amenities the facility will provide. Jack Jumpers CEO Christine Finnegan has also provided support in a letter stating, and I quote, "I'm writing in support of your Home for Hobart 4-court stadium proposal. One of the 5 pillars of the Jack Jumpers is to grow the game, and I am acutely aware that the growth of our grassroots is being hampered by a lack of facilities and understand how this will impact future growth and retention of basketballers across the state. The new 4-court stadium proposal would be a fantastic addition to the community sporting infrastructure in Hobart and provide a place of belonging for the hundreds of players that are registered with your association. The Tasmania Jack Jumpers are fully supportive of the proposal and believe the contribution of the Hobart Phoenix to the sporting landscape of Tasmania deserves to be recognised with its own home facility." End quote. In another letter of support, Basketball Tasmania reaffirms that, and I quote, "having suitable facilities and places to play are key to the continued growth in participation rates and retention. The development of homes for basketball enables the fostering of club culture that is such a richly rewarding and powerful component of junior and senior sport participation. A new forecourt development, as described in the proposal, would be a fantastic addition to the community sporting infrastructure in Hobart, enabling basketball to continue to deliver the benefits of sporting participation to the residents of Hobart and beyond. The proposed facility will provide several significant benefits, including enabling Hobart Phoenix Basketball Association to offer participation experiences commensurate with other sporting pursuits, with matches and trainings held at reasonably convenient time slots and locations including home matches. Enabling rounds of the Tasmanian Jack Jumpers Junior League to be delivered from a central Hobart location at a fit-for-purpose basketball facility. Enabling domestic entry-level basketball competitions to be delivered from a central Hobart location. Oh, sorry, I just repeated that one, I think. A central Hobart location from which to deliver the Basketball Tasmania athlete and coach development programs. A fit-for-purpose facility to host NBL1 games, that is, a home for the Hobart Chargers. A fit-for-purpose facility to enable Basketball Tasmania to cater for increasing demands in the school and statewide tournament space. And the capacity for Hobart to host state and national basketball tournaments with the associated economic benefits to the city and wider region. Basketball Tasmania continue to be fully supportive of the proposal and would be keen to discuss further at the right time the potential booking of court space for Basketball Tasmania use." End quote. Mr President, in addition to the social benefits, having access to a place to call home provides an ability to generate additional revenue to ensure ongoing financial stability and reduce the reliance on government grants and funding for programs, equipment and operational costs. The Northwest region, often referenced as the heartland for sport, is the one region where basketball clubs resemble sporting clubs from other codes. Most clubs have some sort of capacity and physical premises to operate their activities, along with much greater control of and access to their court space. In this region, many of the basketball clubs have a physical premise to call home, along with much greater control of and access to court space. It is well documented and understood by stakeholders across the game that basketball clubs in the Northwest have stronger connections to their local communities, greater participation rates and higher player retention. Of the top 5 participation sports, basketball is the only one that does not have a place to call home. Many other sports are allowed this privilege despite lower participation numbers. Think bowls, tennis, golf, sailing, rowing, rugby. They're all allowed a facility to call home. Why should basketball, the number 1 sport played by adults and number 3 for kids, the number 1 court sport for both adults and kids, be denied this opportunity in southern Tasmania? For the sustainability of community basketball, home-based clubrooms must be provided for in the development of all new court facilities. Mr President, point 6 of my motion asks the Council to note the state government contribution of $80,000 to support the progression of site investigation, design and planning work sufficient to submit a development application for this new facility, with Hobart City Council contributing the land plus the remaining development application costs, and Hobart Phoenix having funded the fully costed design works. I acknowledge the state government contribution of $80,000 towards the development application for the project. The City of Hobart has contributed the remaining funds required to complete the development application at a cost of approximately $229,000. Hobart Phoenix Basketball Association has invested in the project design works and quantity survey costings and has been in close liaison with the City of Hobart and Basketball Tasmania to develop the proposal and advocate for further funding for the project. In a letter of support for the project dated 14th March 2024, Lord Mayor Anna Reynolds confirmed, and I quote, "The Hobart City Council voted unanimously at its meeting of 27 November 2023 to provide in principle approval for the Hobart Phoenix Basketball Club to lease a section of land at Rugby Park for a period of 10 years with a further 3 options of 10 years, subject to no objections being received during the statutory period." Mr President, point 7 of my motion asks the Council to note the state government has invested in new and upgraded community indoor sport facilities across the state in recent years, but investment in the highest growth area of Greater Hobart has been limited, and the capital city of Hobart has no community indoor basketball facilities. Again, quoting from Ben Smith's opinion piece of 12th of March, despite basketball's growing popularity, the City of Hobart does not have a single community indoor basketball court. Let that sink in. In a capital city with thousands of kids eager to play, there is nowhere for them to shoot hoops outside of school or paid facilities. Established in 1981, the Hobart Chargers have no place to call home either, Mr President. 44 years without a home. The Jack Jumpers will have one in 5 or 6 years. Branding our capital city's name in the NBL 1 competition, the Hobart Chargers host travelling teams from the mainland to play home games at Kingston or Sorell. Our pathway to the NBL, our pathway to representing Australia, still without a home. The government could change this by supporting the Home for Hobart basketball project. Hobart Phoenix Basketball Association was established a few years after the Hobart Chargers in 1990 and has one of the largest memberships in Tasmania. Hobart Phoenix fields over 125 teams across the year, with over 700 players hitting the courts each week. This includes 64 junior teams, up from just 25 junior teams in 2018. That's a whopping 250% increase in junior members in 7 years. These teams are supported by over 100 volunteers with a social membership and more than 2,500 supporters. But they have no home, not one single court. They struggle to hire courts from schools and commercial providers. They schedule games outside of the Hobart area to meet demand. Parents drop one child at one venue and then drive another somewhere else so both can play. Basketball becomes a sport only for the wealthy, as the association struggles to raise funds without a home base, as I explained earlier. In recent years, the state government has provided funding for major community sport infrastructure projects in the north and northwest, including $25 million for the Dial Park Regional Sporting Complex at Penguin, $25 million towards Devonport's $60 million multi-purpose sports precinct, $27.5 million towards the $43.6 million Northern Suburbs Community Recreation Hub in Launceston, and $21.5 million towards upgrades at the Elfin Sports Centre. This adds up to around $50 million state government funding for community sporting facilities in the northwest and $49 million in the north. In the south, the numbers tell a different story, Mr President. State government funding for major community sport infrastructure projects in the south includes $1.5 million for stage 1 of the Newtown Sports Precinct, $2 million towards upgrades at the Moona and Clarence Sports Centres, $2 million towards the development of a new gymnastics facility at Brighton, $2.5 million towards the $8.5 million Pembroke Park Stadium at Sorell, $5 million for the Glenorchy Pool redevelopment, and $28 million for the forecourt Glenorchy Sports Centre development at Claremont. This totals $41 million in funding for community sporting infrastructure across Greater Hobart, including just $1.5 million in the City of Hobart local government area, in Tasmania's capital city. $41 million spent on community sporting infrastructure in the Greater Hobart area, where almost 50% of Tasmanians live, work and play sport, in Tasmania's biggest population growth area. $41 million spent in the south compared to $99 million spent in the north and northwest of Tasmania, where collectively the other 50% live, work and play. This is hardly fair. It's time to level the score, Mr President. It is time projects are funded based on community need rather than the need to win votes and to win marginal seats. $58 million to match state government investment in community infrastructure in the north and northwest could build a lot of indoor courts and club rooms in the south, maybe even 16 courts. For completeness, I acknowledge the government has also provided $10 million in funding for football, soccer facility projects in Devonport, Launceston and Kingborough in recent years, and committed $8 million towards the $60 million Bayview College Sports Precinct at Rokeby. I wasn't sure of the breakdown of the football funding, and the Rokeby project is contingent on receiving a federal funding commitment, I understand. For these reasons, I haven't included these investments in the numbers I just referred to, but it is reasonable to ascertain they don't make a significant difference to the regional imbalance of funding across the north and northwest and south. If we include the $10 million funding for football through grants outside of Active Tasmania's regular grants programs, by my calculations, the state government has invested a total of $150 million in the development of community sporting infrastructure in recent years and committed a further $8 million towards the Bayview project, which is contingent on federal funding, as far as I understand. I do acknowledge the state government also provides grants of between $25,000 and $500,000 through the sport and active recreation sector to build new and upgrade existing sport and active recreation infrastructure through Active Tasmania's Tasmanian Active Grant say that again, through Active Tasmania's Tasmanian Active Infrastructure Grants program.
A lot of active, isn't it?
With $5 million allocated to this grant program in 2024-25. However, my contribution is focused on significant government commitments for sporting infrastructure outside of grant programs, as this is what is required for the Home for Hobart basketball project, and this is how funding has been provided in the other examples that I have referred to. Point 8 of my motion asks the Council to note the significant commitment by the state government to invest in high-performance training and game day facilities for professional sport, contributing to an increase in grassroots participation. In recent times, the state government has funded high-performance, elite professional sporting infrastructure to the tune of, by my calculations, $226.5 million. This is made up of $68.5 million for the redevelopment of My State Bank Arena, $65 million towards the $130 million redevelopment of UTAS Stadium, $60 million for the Tasmania Devils High Performance Training Centre, $15 million for the Tasmania Jack Jumpers High Performance Training Centre, $12 million for upgrades at the Silver Dome, and $6 million towards upgrades at Blunston Arena. This totals $226.5 million in elite sporting facilities compared to investment of $150 million in community sporting facilities. $76.5 million more state government funding committed to high performance infrastructure than community sport facilities, excluding, as I mentioned, those Active Tasmania smaller grants for facilities. Now, as I said early on in my contribution, I support government investment in high-performance sporting facilities, but my support is contingent on the government equally prioritising investment in community sporting infrastructure. Right now, the numbers suggest this is not occurring, Mr. President. The fact that we know some kids are missing out on the opportunity to play ball suggests that this is not occurring. The numbers suggest the government's priorities are unbalanced and skewed towards investment in elite sport. Yep. And the projects indicate the priority is elite sport run as a business for profit. Unless I'm missing something, the Tasmanian Institute of Sport's need for purpose-built facilities in the south appears to be totally off the government's agenda. Southern Tasmanian Institute of Sport athletes are out of sight, out of mind, training in a makeshift gymnasium tucked away at Techno Park. But I digress, and that is a topic for another day. To close out my argument on point 8 of my motion, I once again quote from Ben Smith's opinion piece in which he says, and I quote, "We know Tasmania has talent. We've already seen Rain Smith make waves in the US college system. Carla Boyd and Holly Grimer represent Australia on the world stage, and rising stars like Jacob Furphy, Nash Walker and Lucia Hearn make national underage teams. But how many more potential stars are out there? Kids who never get the chance to develop because they don't have a court to play on. Beyond the elite level, increasing basketball access means more kids staying active, building confidence and forming lifelong connections through sport. We're not just talking about future professional players, we're talking about future community leaders, healthier individuals and stronger social ties. Who can argue that investing in facilities to help develop future community leaders isn't a fair and appropriate use of taxpayer money? Yeah. Who can argue that this shouldn't be prioritised equally to, if not higher than, investment in high-performance sporting facilities? Mr. President, it's time to even the score. Point 9 of my motion asks the Council to call on the state government to commit to funding a share of the $25 million community court and clubroom facility at Newtown Bay to demonstrate the importance of this project and increase the likelihood of securing federal government funding. Time is of the essence, and with a federal election approaching, there is a critical opportunity to secure funding for the Home for Hobart basketball project at Newtown Bay. The Basketball Tas opinion piece of 12th of March states, with a federal election approaching, we are calling on our representatives to prioritise investment in community sports infrastructure. The benefits extend far beyond basketball. Investing in accessible, high-quality facilities improves public health, social inclusion and community wellbeing. And the return on investment is undeniable. For every $1 invested in community sports infrastructure, the community receives $7.10 in value. The source is Sports West Social Return on Investment Research. The research is clear. Sports participation creates healthier, happier and more connected communities. If we truly want to see basketball and sport in general thrive in Tasmania, we need to start with the basics, access to facilities. Because when kids have the space and opportunity to play, the impact extends well beyond the game itself. It shapes their future, strengthens our communities and sets the foundation for a healthier, more active Tasmania. So whether you love basketball, support another sport, or simply care about building better communities, there's one thing we can all agree on. It's time to invest in access." End quote. I couldn't have put it better myself. It's time to even the score. In the lead up to the 2024 state election, Hobart Phoenix Basketball Association lobbied major parties for funding commitments towards the Home for Hobart basketball project. Whilst the Labor Party provided a commitment to part funding the project, Premier Jeremy Rockcliffe only committed to continuing to work with the association and Basketball Tasmania in good faith on the proposal. In a letter dated 22nd of March, in response to a request for an election commitment for the Home for Hobart basketball project, Premier Jeremy Rockcliffe wrote, "The Tasmanian Liberal Government has been a strong supporter of basketball during the past 10 years, and we remain committed to providing funding and facilities to ensure that participation can grow even further. This includes a $49.7 million investment for a new community indoor multi-sport facility and Jack Jumpers high performance facility at Wilkinson's Point, which will include 4 new courts for the use of the Hobart basketball community. We recognise that there is more work to be done in providing facilities for the high number of people wanting to play basketball in Hobart. A re-elected majority Liberal government will continue to work with Hobart Phoenix and Basketball Tasmania in good faith on your proposal and will consider any funding requests as part of the budget process." End quote. The City of Hobart has made a submission to the 2025-26 budget process seeking state government funding for this project and is also advocating to the major parties for a commitment through this federal election. It is well known, Mr President, that genuine state, local and community partnerships are regarded as better federal funding propositions. Now is the time for Premier Rockcliffe, the Minister for Sports and Events and the Tasmanian Liberal Government to demonstrate that commitment to work with Hobart Phoenix and Basketball Tasmania in good faith on the Home for Hobart basketball project. If the government can commit to funding a share of this project, it is likely to increase the chance of securing a federal funding commitment through this federal election campaign. Mr President, let me be clear. I'm not asking the government to commit an amount or even a budget year. I understand the government may not be willing to disclose a specific funding amount that the state government will contribute or in what budget year until the budget is handed down on 29th of May. I also understand that some honourable members may consider it would be inappropriate to do so too. Mr President, all I'm asking is for the government to commit to funding a share. I'm simply asking the government to send a message to the major parties through this federal election campaign to say, hey, it's the Tasmanian government calling. The Home for Hobart basketball project is an election funding priority for us and we want to let you know that if you commit some money, we'll chip in too. I implore the government to act now and honour the commitment made by the Premier to seize this imminent opportunity to secure federal funding. Rightly or wrongly, this opportunity comes around only once every 3 years. If we wait another 3 years, how many more kids miss out? Too many. Mr President, point 10 of my motion asks the Council to call on the state government to include the Home for Hobart basketball project at Newtown Bay as a priority in its federal election advocacy, seeking a commitment to federal funding for the project. Because this is the absolute least the government can do. I and the Greater Hobart basketball community call on the government to do the most. I urge my fellow honourable members to support this motion, to help even the score, to help improve our social and health outcomes, and to ensure every Tasmanian child, regardless of which end of the state they come from, has every chance to become a future Tasmania Jack Jumper or a future community leader. I urge the state government to listen to the needs of the community and do what is necessary to secure federal funding for this important project. Minister for Sport and Events, the ball is in your court.
Home, and I would also point to work that's happening. Member for Elwick and I think potentially others talked about the need for club room facilities, for want of a better description, and I understand that throughout the design process for the Glenorchy Sports Centre, the Department of State Growth has met with Glenorchy Basketball Association, I think among others, and I believe they have agreed with a proposal to provide multi-purpose spaces within the facility that can be used by user groups to host their activity, and in recognition of the needs of all user groups, the design of the Glenorchy Sports Centre includes 2 large multi-purpose spaces. One of these spaces opens to the main entry foyer, and the other is more discreetly located in the northeastern corner of the centre and opens out onto the court floor. And these spaces are to be equipped with kitchenettes and kiosk to support catering. I'm pleased to have the Glenorchy Basketball Association, engaged through through that process. I should also mention $2 million has been allocated for urgent maintenance of the Clarence and Moona indoor sports stadiums. That's helpful, and as I mentioned, also the courts at the Jack Jumpers High Performance Centre in Kingston are progressing as well, with construction planned to start later this year. The DA has been approved, and that work is currently out for tender. So again, strides are being made in terms of delivering more court infrastructure, and as I say, those courts will be able to be accessed by the community when not in use by the Jack Jumpers. Specifically in regard to the aspects of the motion around the proposed $25 million Newtown Bay facility, I acknowledge the members' keen interest in and support for the proposal and recognition of the work that's being done between the Hobart City Council and Basketball Tasmania to potentially develop a new 4 new indoor courts in this area. As a government, we recognise the value that the proposal for basketball courts at Newtown could bring to Greater Hobart, and also acknowledge the work of the Hobart City Council, and I have met with the Mayor and spoken to her on this particular issue. Hobart, along with Hobart Basketball Association, Hobart Phoenix, who I note are tied up within that project and in terms of progressing it. And that's why this government has contributed $80,000 towards the project, supporting the progression of site investigation, design and planning work, some of that really important work that's required in order to get these sorts of projects right. I'm also aware that the project received further funding from Hobart City Council to progress the DA and approval application. And when it comes to further Tasmanian government support for this proposal, it is important, Mr President, to highlight that this is part of the budget process currently underway, and I cannot be preempting the budget process in any way, but I note that the Newtown Bay proposal has been the subject of a budget submission, and as such is part of that process. In relation to point 10 of the motion, I understand a submission for federal funding is also underway, and obviously I would urge all members of Parliament to advocate strongly with with federal candidates for the project to receive funding as a priority. That's not the exclusive domain of the state government by any means.
Question is that the motion be agreed to. The honourable member for Elwick in reply.
Thank you, Mr President, and I sincerely thank honourable members for their genuine interest in and engagement on this motion. I'm very grateful, and I certainly know that the basketball community, not just in Hobart but across Tasmania, will be grateful for the debate that we've had on this important topic today too. It was terrific to hear from members who each represent different communities with such a strong connection to basketball. It is really apparent from the personal experiences that have been shared that in areas of the state where there is greater access to facilities, there are higher participation rates, and where there are home club facilities, there are stronger clubs and stronger connections to community. I also thank honourable members for their acknowledgement of the work and level of detail that I put into the motion as well. I did spend many hours over the weekend researching and preparing my contribution, and I thank Basketball Tasmania, CEO Ben Smith, Matt and Stu from Hobart Phoenix Basketball Association, and staff from the City of Hobart for the information they have provided to help inform my contribution today too. In summing up, I'll do my best to answer questions raised by honourable members and acknowledge each of their contributions. The member for McIntyre asked during the member for Pembroke's contribution what Labor specifically committed during the 2024 election, and I can confirm that State Labor's election commitment was for a $6 million contribution towards the project. The member for McIntyre also asked, has there been any commitment to date from major parties to the upcoming federal election? And the answer is no, not yet. Hence, the timing is of the essence, and really the urgency of this motion, and why I was seeking support from honourable members and the government for it, because sometimes you need a first mover, and there hasn't been one yet. And you've heard me speak about the underinvestment in the electorate of Clark in recent years compared to other electorates, perhaps where there are marginal seats, and really we need a first mover on this, which is why it's important. And yes, Mr. Wilkie, on Friday at the Hobart Phoenix Basketball Association's rally for this federal election and state advocacy, government funding advocacy, spoke and affirmed his commitment to seeking federal funding should he be re-elected, and to working with whoever is in government to secure that funding. But as we know, whether he's in a position of power to be able to secure that funding is a question that we don't know the answer to. And ultimately, if we can secure commitments from both the Liberal and Labor candidates and Green candidate in the federal election for Clark, then that would be a real, great outcome for the project. Is the project shovel ready? You asked, also member for McIntyre. As the minister and I think I referred to, the state government contributed $80,000 towards the preparation of the development application. Hobart City Council have committed $229,000. So certainly, it's got to be paid for somehow. How does the government fund all its commitments? Is it always cash? I don't know the answer to that, but the DA is being prepared, and certainly the project, there are concept plans, quantity surveyed costs that have been developed by Hobart Phoenix Basketball Association, so it's pretty close to being shovel ready. The member for McIntyre also asked about public transport to the site, and I can confirm the proposed site at Newtown Bay is certainly much more accessible by public transport and active transport as well than Kingston or Sorell, which is where currently a lot of games are played. I can confirm there are bus stops in Lutana and at Cornelian Bay, which will mean people can get a bus very nearby to the site. The site is also right alongside the Brooker Highway, the main arterial route, and a central site in the south. It's just a 2-kilometre walk, ride or scoot from the local Hobart City High School. Newtown Primary School, even closer to Bowen Road Primary School, and just a little way further to Lena Valley Primary School. Also Sacred Heart School in the area as well. The existing site is already home to other sports, including rugby, hockey and rowing as well. Currently, some families travel from Lauderdale or Brighton to Kingston or Sorell, some 30 to 40 kilometres to play basketball. And as I mentioned before, families often have to choose which child will play because their kids have games scheduled at different locations. So certainly, relatively speaking, the Newtown Bay site provides much more central and convenient location for the majority of the Greater Hobart region than other satellite facilities. Consultation with the City of Hobart also determined that Newtown Bay is the most suitable site in the local government area. Ultimately, this site delivers best bang for buck for the region. Mr. President, the member for McIntyre also spoke and understood the need for a home base, and did mention that she thought perhaps the Glenorchy Sports Centre that's being constructed at Claremont would be the home for basketball in the south. Certainly that will provide for 4 of the 16 court shortage, but will still be 12 courts short in the Greater Hobart area. If we can get the Home for Hobart project over the line, we'll still be 8 courts short, but it's a good start. And to clarify, the Glenorchy Sports Centre at Claremont will be home for the Glenorchy Basketball Association, who, like Hobart Phoenix Basketball Association, also have hundreds of members and currently no home. As the Minister referred to, the plans for the Claremont site don't currently include a clubroom facility, but it does include a multi-purpose facility to be shared. So if the plans remain this way, whilst Glenorchy Basketball Association will have courts to play on, they won't be able to reap the benefits necessarily that a home club base for one club provides. As the number one indoor court sport for kids and adults, it is considered that basketball associations ought to be provided the same benefit that most AFL football and soccer and cricket clubs are provided. They're not multi-use shared facilities, and that's why they can be so sustainable through their canteen and bar trade and the other benefits of a club facility.
You'll be serving bar facilities at the junior basketball, will you?
Oh, well, I don't know. Member for McIntyre, if you're a parent on a Friday afternoon watching your child play basketball.
You're bound to be it.
That's right. So the Minister suggests that Glenorchy Basketball Association has agreed to the multi-use spaces, and this I appreciate this information, and that the Department of State Growth has consulted on that. But that's not my mail from Glenorchy Basketball.
I don't think I used the word agreed.
Agreed. They didn't. Okay, right. They participated in consultation. Okay, so I may come back with further questions on this, but I can confirm the plans for the Hobart facility certainly do include club rooms. Thanks to the member for Pembroke for sharing some of his personal experiences, referring to the success of clubs in the Northwest and the challenges experienced as a coach of kids basketball in the South. Thanks to the member for Hobart for reinforcing how important team sport is, and for acknowledging certainly that it can change lives, and for your support of this motion. The member for Hobart also referred to participation numbers and did suggest at one point, I think you referred to, there are 566 people who participate in basketball in Hobart.
Data from the basketball.
Yeah, so I just wanted to be clear. I wasn't sure which page or which data you were specifically referring to, but on page 26 of the strategy, it talks about participation data for Greater Hobart, which includes 6,362 registrations and 3,685 registered club players. So I just wanted to be clear.
You were talking about small Hobart, weren't you?
Page 11, I think we were talking about just the contained city of Hobart.
Okay, sure.
Page 11, participation by LGA. So
Right,
quite
okay, sure.
a different set of numbers.
Yeah, people who live in the Hobart LGA. Thank you. Thanks to the member for Mersey for sharing his historical knowledge of the evolution of basketball and his own basketball career. Reinforcing the strength of a home base as well by again talking about the experience in the Northwest. The member for Mersey also suggested investing in upgrades to access to school facilities to address some of the shortage in the more immediate time, and certainly the member for Murchison just now has referred to school facility use as well. I'm certainly pleased to hear the member for Mersey joining the chorus here. I know the member for McIntyre had some questions about this too, and just last week I asked the Honourable Minister for Education questions on this topic, and I'm happy to share the answer with honourable members again as well, because it's pleasing to see that increasing access to school facilities is a priority, and that there is work undertaken on the audit to look at how we make that happen. Certainly the barriers associated with school access has been an ongoing issue for a long time, and it was something I worked on back in around 2010 when I worked at Sport and Recreation Tasmania, now called Active Tasmania, when the opening the gates policy was developed. The problem is still not completely solved, with too much inconsistency in booking systems and access. Again, a nightmare for roster conveners, as I mentioned earlier, but I'm heartened to hear the Minister for Education is onto this, and I have every faith that she will sort it out. Despite this, these challenges with school bookings, I can confirm the Hobart Phoenix Basketball Association is most certainly exhausting use of school facilities in Hobart. Over the past few years, the association has had hire arrangements with Hobart City High School, Newtown and Ogilvie campuses, Hilliard Christian School, Elizabeth College, Sacred Heart, Dominic College, Glenorchy Primary School, Hutchins and Bowen Road Primary School. It has also had hire arrangements with private court operator Swisher. The association has had to manage these agreements and the associated access requirements, and is always at the risk of being locked out of the facilities due to school requirements. School facilities are already heavily utilised and do not provide a suitable long-term solution that allows the sport to not just survive but thrive. I agree with the member for Launceston, who reminded us that sporting facilities are important across the state, and indeed it is this equity in access that it is at the heart of this motion. The member for Murchison appreciate the feedback and reaching out to the clubs in your area, and I hear the need for increased facilities also in response to increased participation in the Northwest. But I reiterate the key point of this motion is that there is not one community indoor court facility in the Hobart local government area. Essentially, what Hobart Phoenix Basketball Association is asking for is just what exists in other parts of the state, in the north and the northwest. Not necessarily bells and whistles on things, just what exists elsewhere. I thank the honourable members for Pembroke, Hobart, Mersey, McIntyre and Murchison who spoke in support of this motion. I really appreciate, again, your engagement and your support. I also thank the Honourable Minister for Sport and Events for his response and his acknowledgement that the government is faced with a challenge in keeping up with the growing demand for sporting facilities, community sporting facilities, and that this is a positive thing, Mr President, in the sense that it means more people are participating, and if more people are participating, the healthier our community will be. What I heard from the Minister was that the budget request by Hobart Phoenix Basketball Association, or by City of Hobart in partnership with Hobart Phoenix, is being considered. That the government recognise the value the project could bring to Hobart, and this is why the government has contributed $80,000 towards the planning for the project. What I heard from the Minister's response was that further support is to be considered as a part of the budget process which is underway, and that the Minister couldn't possibly preempt the budget outcome. I understand this, and that's why I was not asking the government to commit an amount or even a budget year, just to making a commitment to a shared contribution, to making a shared contribution to the funding, a broad commitment to providing some funds towards the project. Now I'm asking myself, if the government has allocated money for the project in the 25-26 budget, perhaps can they announce it now? I do believe pre-budget announcements have been made before.
Oh, often.
Perhaps, and I'm worried that waiting until the 29th of May budget for a commitment by the government will jeopardise this chance we have right now to secure funding through the federal election. Again, I am not asking for the government to commit an amount or even just a budget year, just to commit to funding a share of the $25 million, with the details to be determined at a later point. I still remain hopeful, given that the Minister suggested it's being considered as part of the budget process, that this can be done now to give us the best possible chance of securing federal election funding. I respect the government's commitment to due process in this instance, and I welcome and appreciate the inference.
How you feel when the enabling legislation arrives for the stadium?
I respect the government's commitment to due process in this instance and welcome and appreciate the inference, I think is the right word, that the project is being considered as part of the budget process. I'm not entirely clear on whether the government will actively advocate to major parties to seek a commitment to the Home for Hobart Basketball project through this federal election, but I sure hope that they do. I sure hope they will, and I stand here ready as the member for Elwick to work with them on that advocacy, and I really hope that over the next few weeks we can work together to make a meaningful difference in this quest to secure funding. Then I'm hopeful the major parties will hear our call. Thank you, Mr President. I think I have made my point, Mr President, so in closing I remain optimistic, and I really hope the government will work with me and the City of Hobart and the Hobart Phoenix Basketball Association over the next couple of weeks in the lead up to the federal election to collectively do what is necessary to secure commitments from the major parties to fund this really important project. And then I'm hopeful the major parties will hear our call, that they will understand the need and the benefits of this project and will see the value proposition offered by the Home for Hobart Basketball project at Newtown Bay as a genuine local, state, federal and community partnership. Let's hope, Mr President, that 16 courts short becomes 8 courts short very soon through the long overdue development of both the Glenorchy Sports Centre and the Home for Hobart Basketball at Newtown. This problem is not going away of a court shortage, of increasing participation, and I will not give up until every child has a place to play.
Question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. Orders of the day.